Hello and welcome to Cancer in Context, a podcast from the front lines of cancer care. I'm Nicola Kamath of Access Hope. At Access Hope, we help people access the best cancer care in the world right from their local community. And we're pleased today to be joined by Michael Knowlton, who will share his story this episode in what he's learned from living with cancer the past 19 years. So before we dig into it, I'll take a pause and welcome Michael to the show. Today, we even got matching water glasses to start. So
Cheers to that.
we'll start with a cheers and we'll let Michael introduce himself.
Well, thank you so very much. It's really a privilege to be here. I'm Michael Knowlton. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4 adult children. I'm a granddad, which is really just one of the most amazing things, to 5 kids. And as Nicola says, I'm also going to be 20 years on my cancer diagnosis. So just a real honor, and thank you for inviting me.
Michael, we're so pleased to have you here today and have a lot of admiration for both your journey and your advocacy for patients, which is what brings you here today.
Thank you.
So, nearly 2 decades with cancer. That's not just a medical consideration. There's emotional, social, financial, and a deeply personal experience there. Um, and diagnosis and treatment are a part of that. And that's where I thought we could start talking today. You know, often the cancer journey is starting when people are at the point of diagnosis and early treatment. What do people not realize when they're in that moment that you can now talk about having reflected on your own experience and those you've helped along the way?
Well, I guess I think if we took a poll, hearing that you have cancer is just the shock of your life. For me, it sent me into disbelief, like why me? All the uncertainty that comes. 80%, one of the first data points, 80% of people with my cancer are dead in 10 years. I was diagnosed at 46. I was rolling well. My career was an all-time high. And all of a sudden, it literally just is like pulling the rug out from under you. And so you begin this, process of trying to sort it out. And of course, diagnosis doesn't come easily. In my case, it took months and months and months to determine what was really going on. And I think a lot of people experience that. And then you've got to figure out, the treatment paths and is it the right one? And you're starting to have new relationships with physicians and oncologists. But my head ultimately goes to my family. You just fear like you're not going to be around to see it all. And so the diagnosis part is hard. And, for sure, one thing I can say is I have not figured it all out. Um, but I have learned to somehow let the cancer be and coexist with it in spite of the incredible highs and lows and, the moments when honestly your mortality is in front of your face. And um, so that's just kind of how it started for me.
That makes, I think is resonant with a lot of us. You mentioned something in there, Michael. Your initial diagnosis itself took months. Can you talk a little bit about what was behind that? I think sometimes that's a misconception in cancer care that a diagnosis is an immediate, clear picture of where you are.
Well, and in my case, I had a urologist issue, and he said, "Let's do uh, not an ultrasound, but a CT scan." I had large liver and spleen, and then I dug into some blood work. I was feeling pretty good. And over the next 3, 4 months, finding an oncologist, finding a care center that really could get it, it was really, really hard. Like I actually flew to a different city because it seemed as though there might have been something available there. And then you finally end up in clinic with the oncologist and says, okay, well, the only way we're going to know this is if we do a bone marrow biopsy. And I'm saying, okay, so how do we schedule that? And he says, well, which side do you want it to hurt on? And, that's how it begins. And then you've got to wait for the results. December the 6th, 2006. I mean, that's the day that it was the definitive sitting with the oncologist saying, you have a very rare blood disease. And I think a lot of people really have a hard time finding their way to the diagnosis, let alone what follows and treatments and strategies and living along with it.
Well, Michael, that's an interesting point that you bring up, let alone the treatment plan. I was actually curious to hear about that next. You went through this harrowing journey to find the right diagnosis. In your experience of yourself and the others you've helped along the way, is the initial treatment plan the only best path forward?
Well, I don't think it is. I mean, in my case, like if you look at I have a disease called Waldenström's macroglobulinemia. I used to joke about the fact that my 7-year-old could pronounce that. And in 2006, there
Quite the
just,
7-year-old.
yeah, well, and in 2006, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't research. And so the top physician in the world who really had been studying it was a Dana-Farber. And so I flew down. He wanted running all of his own diagnostics, his labs, and everything else. And I was sitting with the world expert on the disease. And there was extra tests, like he tested for things that I'd never know how to pronounce to just eliminate some things. But then for me, Nicola, it ended up into a wait and watch. So you've got bone marrow, your bone marrow produces your blood. It's 70% of it is cancerous. So we just got to wait. Some people call it wait and watch. We call it wait and worry. And it's hard through that time. And then all of a sudden it really hit. And he told me like cancer can hit a cliff for you very quickly. So night sweats, just incredible fatigue, just everything
Goodness.
ends. And that's when the chemo started. And so I did a 9-month monthly cycles. I did 2 years of additional chemo. And, that's a hard go. Anybody that has got a loved one that has, been sitting alongside knows. And then in 16, it jumped into my central nervous system. I was shaving. I had got double vision. I had numbness. And the MRI showed that the nerves in my brain were basically the cancer cell that jumped right onto those. And
Wow.
that was the issue. And I did 10 days of radiation. And so the story goes. But there's a lot of highs and lows, as you can imagine. And there was a point in 16 when it moved into my central nervous system. I did the first round of chemo. I was 4 days on. After the second day, I went to see a neurosurgeon. They wanted to put a reservoir in through my brain so that they could inject chemotherapy into my central nervous system. And so I went and saw him. He said, my job is to just do the work. I'm very confident in it. And, this is what your doctor's requesting. So I come home, pull the car over because I'm being sick. I get home. I can't get out of bed. And I'm scheduled the next Tuesday for brain surgery. And my brother-in-law, Lynn's brother, was here, and he said to her, like, "Are you listening to yourself? Like, you can't get out of bed. He's down and low, and you're gonna take him down on Tuesday and do brain surgery?" And so in that moment, I stopped. I selected quality of life. I just like, it was gonna take me down, and lo and behold, it's incredible what they take. And then time over time, and then this issue and that issue, and it still continues. And so that's where kind of the fear comes in, and yet, you somehow got to find a way to keep it in check.
And I hear you in saying as that fear sets in and as the different stages set through, there's a difference in who you speak to and where you go. You mentioned early on to control that cancer for the first 10 years. There were tests you'd never heard of before going on with the expert um, cancer center. So, can you explain a little bit of how your family processes, what info or perspective would most change how patients approach decisions in care? You've taken us through a couple of major ones. One, when you sought that kind of expert opinion outside your current care, and then another when you decided to look at to wait a bit
Yeah.
and then go back in and reexamine.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's fair to say that we're all going to put our family first, and so we should be. Um, we were really afraid. We sat the kids down very early on. My eldest was maybe 14, my youngest was 6. So we said, Dad has cancer. And you ask yourself, like, well, what does that mean exactly? And you're so early in it, Nicola, you can't really articulate it. It's like, we don't know yet, but we're finding out. And we want to be honest with you and tell you what's going on. And so over the years, what I started to notice was, like, I go to the doctor's appointments, and my Lynn would always be there, and my daughter would join me as well. And then the doctor say, "Well, how it's going?" And I say, "Well, it's going great." And then they would look at Lynn and say,
Mhm.
"How's it going?" "Oh, he's got night
My
sweats. He's sleeping." And I just really found it hard to tell the truth. And even when we'd be with friends, they say, "What's going on with Michael?" Which is always such a hard conversation. I'd say, Lynn would say, "Well, it's not looking good." And I'd say, "Well, hang on a minute. What do you mean it's not looking good?" And I finally, like, I realized, like, right between the eyes, that the caregivers and our loved ones, like, they're carrying the burden. And it's so easy to be in the pity party for ourselves that we actually miss what it what is needed for them. I mean, my children are scared to death. I had my granddaughter here. She saw me. I just had a bout. I was 15 days, like 8 weeks ago. I couldn't get out of bed. I just got hit with something massive. 3 visits to the hospital, and it was my granddaughter's birthday in the same house. I pop on the third floor. Nobody's coming in. They're bringing me a piece of birthday cake. And then a couple days later, she says to me, "Granddad, are you going to die soon?" Like, it 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 just puts this a diagnosis just forces a prioritization of the things that matter. And I know for me, it's about being present now. It's not about, like, achievement. It's just trying to show up and listen and understand. And it's just a hard conversation. And I think friends, they don't even want to ask because they think they're prying, and then it feels like nobody's asking, nobody cares. So it's this really crazy balance.
And I think for
Man,
everyone outside to understand and make sure within the care setting, there's that trust. You mentioned the physician would look to Lynn and say, "How is he really doing?" Not only respecting what your family is going through, but also keeping that trust of someone that knows you, that can guide your care by all the expert advice as well as what they know about their relationship with you as the doctor that's treating your care, you know?
well, and the thing I guess I've realized is that, like, the doctor treating me, when it hit my nervous system, I said, like, where do we go? And she said, there's no data. There's 200 people in the world who have both Waldenstrom's and central nervous system disease. I have spoken to Dana Farber. I've spoken to Dr. Treon, and we think that the best path forward is this. I'm blessed, though, Nicola. I'm in the best center and top in the world. If I was in Owen Sound, like, if I was in the small town nearby, I go into clinic. We're all masked up. I go every 3 months at a minimum, more often. I have a brain MRI and a spinal MRI in the next 7 days. But you show up and there's 40 other people that are all there. And then you get into your room and you wait. The oncologists are treating so many. And so it just occurs to me that, like, if you have a chance to get a second opinion from somebody that has studied it, how do you ever imagine keeping up? I use AI. I'm quite proud of it. AI has, I use Claude, I use Chat. Every report of mine going back as far as I can, my scans, my blood work, my reports, and it prepares me to go and advocate for myself and be able to have a conversation. And I think I don't know what it was. I know in my parents' day, like the doctor was the doctor, and you said exactly, you took their advice. But it just occurs to me there's so much going on in their world, it would be impossible. If you're have a diagnosis that hundreds of other thousands of people annually get the diagnosis, there's protocols that are pretty straightforward. But I mean, you take a lung disease, there's probably 40 variables of it. And somehow you're looking for your clinic to know enough about that, Nicola.
You
So,
know, it's so true, Michael, and the load on these physicians is so high. And you mentioned something about how special it was. You had your doctor that was collaborating with these top institutions around and how others don't have access to that. And I think that, you know, that's what we're trying to create at Access Hope. I think we are trying to give everyone the experience that you had by connecting the treating oncologists with this expertise from these best centers with folks that specialize in the cancers they work on. So your experience and the support your family was able to get through this is kind of what we've built this company to replicate and give to everyone.
and I think like there's a lot of things that come up in our lives, an accident, of this or that. Obviously, there's the scale. But cancer is life and death. And when you're in it, you've got to somehow continue to put food on the table. You've got to manage yourself. And so this is where I think we need to help people really learn about their disease, be the best patients that they can be for themselves, advocate for themselves, because you can get lost in it. You've got an employer that has spent it's so hard deciding on a benefit plan, and now it's established and you have access to it as an employee. You need to take advantage of that. The caregiving that you get in a hospital, you walk into a chemo ward, it doesn't matter. It's incredible. The nurses, the passion. And the employers that are standing behind us, that's why they're setting this up for us. And so I just think we need to take advantage of it. And sometimes it's like low hanging fruit and we won't even pick it off the tree. And
Well,
there's one other quick example that I would share, which is my dad lived till 93 and he called me when he was 88 and he said, I have something to tell you. I said, well, what's that? He said, I have leukemia. And I said, what do you mean you have leukemia? He said, yeah, I haven't told you, but I went in and I did the bone marrow biopsy and I'm on leukemia. And next week, my local treating oncologist, very small center, wants to start me on chemo. And I said, like, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're 88 or you're 28, it's the same shock. So I said, okay, hang on a minute. Just let me think about this. So I was able within several days to get him an appointment at my hospital. I've been there 15 years. My physician is I'm blessed. He's like a friend. And I got my dad in to see the top physician and top oncologist in leukemia at that hospital. And he looked at my dad, he looked everything, all the details, and he said, Jim, yes, you do. And this is the path that's being suggested for you for treatment is not the path. This is the path. This is the latest. This is the best. You will have the most success with this. And I'm happy to speak to your treating oncologist. And dad went back. The guy was humble. He was happy to do it. And between him and his local treating oncologist, they both called it the wonder drug. It literally, neither of them could believe how it performed for him. And that is the magic of being open to other possibilities and the magic of accessing the best thinking that's out there.
that's an incredible story. And now I know where you got it from. Your dad seems like pretty these are difficult conversations to have, and I think it's difficult to have the courage to be able to look and say, "What are the possibilities?" And so I think you got that spark from your dad and you're carrying it to our audience now. Michael, just one last question for you, and I've saved it up till the end. What is the single most important lesson that you've learned along the way?
I think you have to take the long road. I think oh, sorry. I think for a long time, I was waiting for life to go back to be normal, and there is no going back to normal. Um, I start to think about the legacy and my children, and just as you said, I got something from my dad. I wanna be able to pass that light on to my children. And so I think it's about being a light for other people and getting out of your self-pity, keeping your legs moving, taking care of yourself the very best that you can, um, having the hard conversations, and, realizing that actually the magic is in everyday moments. You don't need to get a cancer diagnosis to understand that. And yet we've got so much fear about what's coming. We've got all the crap about what's already passed. And we're just not paying attention. Personally, I've found that I've not paid attention to the things that really matter. So I speak to different people. I don't see different people. I don't do certain things. But if it isn't fun, I'm not going to do it. And, I would just say have the patience, rest your body. Like, your body needs it's speaking to you, and it's so hard, Nicola, like, you're exhausted and you gotta go lay down, and you feel like you're gonna either miss out on something or you shouldn't be doing that. Let your body heal and really give yourself the time and surround yourself with hope on maybe, just maybe, a miracle or something is going to happen that's going to be an unlocker for you.